Hey, everybody, welcome to the Book Leads Impactful Books for Life and Leadership. I'm your series host and leadership performance coach, John Jaramillo. This podcast series is about getting to the books that have impacted the people in my life and my network. So, colleagues, new and old, friends, new and old. These are all great leads that I'll be interviewing on these books to get to the ones that have really made an impact on them, that have influenced them in their life, work, leadership, all those areas that intersect. So the categories of books that I cover in this series are the first category where they're sharing a book with me that I haven't read. A second category where we've both read the book, whether specifically for the series or back in our previous lives before the series. And then the third category is when specifically the author and or publisher comes on to talk about the book that they want to get out to their audience. In this particular episode, my guest is Esgueva, and Monica is a renowned self-development teacher and spiritual guide known for bridging the gap between Eastern and Western philosophies. With a profound understanding of the mind, human consciousness, and spirituality, she has been helping the transformation of individuals for more than 15 years. She's a prolific author who is celebrated for her impact on self-development in Spain and Latin America, and she has nine empowering books. Monica's journey extends beyond her literary contributions. During a decade long exploration of India and Nepal, she immersed herself in profound teachings from Tibetan lamas, including the revered Dalai Lama. She teaches workshops and guides meditations and transcendence retreats, and she's been a TEDx speaker and frequent Spanish national TV guest. Very committed to guiding others' inner evolution, she has worked as a transformational coach for the last 15 years. Since 2008, she has taught emotional mastery, self knowledge, and mindfulness to more than 2,500 executives at companies such as Accenture, Samsung, and Oracle. She was honored as one of the top 100 women leaders in Spain and one of the top 10 Thinkers and Experts Award. Besides her native Spain, she has lived in Paris, London, Tanzania, and Asia. She speaks four languages fluently. And I reach out to Monica after I think it's one of those deals where you have a mutual connection that comments on her post. So I begin seeing her posts in my feed. And recently she had posted about the newest book coming out. So I reached out to her after having seen her post, what she's about, the book that she's putting out. We got to talking back and forth, sharing insights and experiences from our journeys. And I wanted to invite her on here to talk about that book, much in the same fashion I've had all my guests to learn about who she is and the messages that she wants to get out there because of her book, through her book. So, Monica, thank you so much for joining me.
It's an honor, John. Thank you for reaching out and thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Absolutely. So, Monica, who are you today? I like to get a sense of who my guest is. I read the bio, obviously rich in history and experience and work. But what does your day to day look like so people can get a sense for the work that you're doing?
Hmm. As you said, I have been working as a transformational coach for now will be 15, 16 years. And today, for example, just to give you an example, I just came home from giving a workshop to an important pharmaceutical company here in Spain and now worldwide. And I just taught them about how to know themselves better and know the other people's personalities in their team. So by knowing each other much better in a more profound way, then they can work together with more respect and more appreciation for each other. So sometimes I do give workshops like that in organizations, and most of the days what I do is I do personal sessions when people come to me because they want to make some transformation in their lives. They want to get rid of burdens, or they want to jump over obstacles they have been finding on their path, all sorts of things. And I particularly enjoy when they are on to a transformation. It's not just how to manage time in a better way or how to become more productive. I am interested in something that is in changes that are more profound and more lasting. So
Yeah,
those,
it's not temporary from one day to the next, 1 month to the next, or
like,
one role, one executive role or professional role. It's something that is kind of the undercurrent now of who they become.
yes, it's more about who they want to become rather than just getting rid of something that is they are encountering at this particular time. And I think it's challenging because it's always new for me, but it makes it more interesting because it's always something that is profound, and it's a challenge for both of us, and it requires a lot of focus for me as well. So I really, really enjoy what I do.
Yeah, because I can imagine, obviously, no two people's stories, experiences are the same. I mean, they
No,
may have similar threads, similar experiences, but who they are, their experiences, everything that's built them up into who they are is just so different. And I mean, that's the origin of the way that we think today. That's the basis for it.
exactly. And who they want to be as well, because some people are up to a very long road because they really are looking for like far-reaching, I would say, transformation or development or evolution. And some of the people are more into something that is not so far away, and they don't want to change so much. They just in the middle of a crisis, and they just touch rock bottom, for example, and they just want to get rid of their suffering. They want to alleviate that suffering, and they don't know how to do it because they are really at the very bottom right now. So you have in between, you have everything. But it's true that most people come to me because they don't feel good with themselves. They feel that they are out of their depth, or they're going through a crisis, or they really cannot manage on their own. So it's like, okay, I want to get rid of these painful feelings that I have, and I don't know what to do about that.
Yeah.
So that's most of the population. I think in general we are more wired to change when we don't have an option, but very few people are willing to change just because they want to develop themselves. You know.
Yeah. So, Monica, to understand how you got here, can you give me some insight as to how you began when you were in high school or college? What were the steps that you took to begin your studies, if that's the case, or to enter the workforce? What is it? What did your path look like at the beginning? And kind of walk me through like the general highlights and the general hits of your path to now, if you could.
Okay, I'm going to do my best.
Sure.
um, when I was always very spiritual. I was born very spiritual, and I was when I was a child, I will ask my parents, where do we come from, and what is the meaning of life? Which they were very profound questions that they were not able to answer in a way that was comforting for me.
Yeah.
And I remember even at school, I remember one day our professor asked all of us, what do you want to do when you become adults, and people will say things like, okay, I want to buy a big house, I want to become a famous architect, I want to start a family. And when it was my turn, I said, well, I want to become a wise person with a big heart. And then everybody was looking at me like, where is she coming from?
How old are you at this point?
Probably 18, 17.
Wow. Okay.
I was pretty young. But for a while I tried to fit in. So I studied economics at the university, and I took a master's degree, and then I moved to London. I worked for Prada in London first, and then I went to Paris and worked for an international business school. I married early, and I had, like, I would say, in material terms, I had everything. I was living in a very good neighborhood, very good job. We have very good social life, good holidays, like everything that you can think of. But I felt deeply unfulfilled.
Mm.
So one day I decided to go to Dharamsala, which is a little town at the feet of the Himalayas in India, because I wanted to do some research on Tibetans in exile. And I went there with that goal in mind. But with an unexpected turn of events, I missed my flight home. And that meant that instead of staying there for 3 weeks, which was the idea, I ended up staying 3 months. I then started studying with Tibetan lamas. I received teachings from the Dalai Lama. And I realized that what they were teaching was something that had been in my heart all my life. They were giving me the answers that no one else could give me. And they do have a very good map of the mind, the nature of the mind, and how to become let's put it that way, superhumans. So being able to reach your highest potential, which they call enlightenment, and it's really something that we could call, for a lack of a better word in Western terms, I would say self-transcendence. So that was very meaningful, very impactful for me. So when I went back home after those 3 months, my home was in Paris at the time, and I realized I could not go on with my former life. I had to make very important changes. So within the span of 6 months, I left my job, I left my husband, I left my house, I left my plants, I left my money. I just put everything I could fit in a car, my car, and I went back to my parents' home, knowing that I wanted to contribute to a better world, but I didn't know how I was going to earn a living. All I knew is I know how I don't want to waste my life. I don't know how long I have on this earth, but I want to make something useful out of it, something beneficial. So what I did, without knowing how to do it, was getting good training, mainly in the US. So I studied mindfulness in UCLA. I went to do some courses at MIT on neuroscience and psychology. I studied hypnosis in New York. I studied NLP, neuro linguistic programming, with one of the creators, John Grinder. And then at the same time, for 10 years, I went back to Nepal and India to keep studying for 2 or 3 months every year with Tibetan lamas and receiving teachings from the Dalai Lama. So that's how my huge change started.
That's amazing that you had that kind of foresight when you were that young. It's just incredible because I think so many people that feel lost in life, whether whatever severity of mental health or just sadness or just discomfort, there's something about their life that feels off.
Mm,
And I think they just continue that way because maybe they just think, well, I'm programmed this way. This is the way life is. I have to be tough. I have to be resilient. I have to move forward. And so many people don't have that insight or that introduction into something like you did for yourself or the work that you do, where it's like, maybe what you have around you is not for you. Maybe it's not tapping into who you are really, what you're meant for. And again, I see the work you're doing as not meant for in terms of career and success and all the benchmarks you said you yourself had, but just that inner peace. First of all, that inner peace.
mm.
I think before even that self transcendence, just that inner peace of just the answers are within you. And the more that I speak to people, the more that I interview people, have these conversations with people, the more I see when people have those inner dialogues is when they really start feeling fulfillment, true happiness, true grounding. Um, that it really is nothing out there. We spend our lives going around looking for it. It's one thing the way you did it because you were looking for the answers, like, what am I all about? But they look for other stuff, other successes, the material world, like you mentioned. And by the time they feel fulfilled, by the time they feel grounded and like they really are where they're meant to be, it's because they've listened to themselves. So it's just incredible that it happens that way.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely correct. I think most people, because we have been programmed that way, we have been programmed to believe that what we are looking for is outside. It's always coming from the external sources. And this is how, because we have been programmed that way, we believe it. But we have to understand that we are not determined by it. We are programmed, but not determined by it. We still have the chance to make a choice. I'm not
Mm,
saying it's an easy choice. It's not an easy choice, but it's possible, it's feasible. And one of the things that this programming does on us is that it cuts our link with our inner guidance. We all have that inner guidance. We all have that inner voice that tells you this is the right way and this is not right for me. The only thing is that we don't listen to it because we are just always with an ongoing chatter inside of our minds, and then trying to listen to everyone else. It's like
yeah.
everyone is telling you what to do, what to think, what to believe, how to dress, what to do with your life, with your time, with everything. So it's like we follow the crowd, but it doesn't mean it's going to take you to the right place. And
Yeah.
we have been programmed to have sheep like minds. but
Mhm.
not your own mind, to be your own self, and to find your own path. As you said, every path is individual, but we have to dare to explore that. And that's the only way it will take you, as you said, to inner peace. There's no other way. And I have worked, in the last 15, 16 years, I have worked with people from all walks of life, including millionaires, um, leaders of companies, even celebrities. And from the outside, you see all the glamour, and then they must be so fulfilled, so happy. And they have the same problems. They have this deep seated anxiety and dissatisfaction. Because there's always more to have, more to achieve, and the fear of losing what you already had. So it does not come with more. We think it's more followers, more likes, more money in the bank, more possessions, more relationships, you name it. And then you realize, when you get there, when you get what you want, when you get what you desire, when you get what other people say that you should achieve or attain, then you have it, and it's like, well, you know what? It doesn't last long. I feel the same way. I feel
Yeah. Yeah.
unfulfilled.
Monica, does it make sense from your childhood that this is what you're doing? I can imagine the response, but how do you reconcile that?
I I was looking. I initiated my inner quest, as I said, when I was very young, and it took me many years to find it. But when I made that change, I just mentioned before, that's when I started to feel I am aligned with my soul's purpose. It doesn't mean that it was easy, and I didn't earn a living right away. It took me 5 years to do so. 5 long years. It was not easy at all. But I didn't even question once, am I doing the right thing? Or I should go back to who I was before. I never questioned it, because I knew it was the right path. It's
Yeah.
just that you have to have a lot of patience, perseverance, and faith when no one else is going to have it for you. And this is where most people quit, because it's like, okay, who knows, is it going to work? Maybe it's not going to work. Is it? Maybe, I haven't seen any good signs yet, so maybe it's a no. Maybe this is never going to be fruitful.
Yeah.
You have to
Yeah.
put.
And everybody has different signs. Everybody has different things that they're looking for. So it's just it's very confusing. We live it. We achieve the check boxes. Some of us say to ourselves, "Okay, the check boxes just aren't enough. There's something else that I need to create or find for myself." But yeah, it's just so many different moving pieces for different people. Monica, what does leadership mean to you?
I think the only true leadership that exists is self leadership. Because I think if you try to lead others when you have not done your inner work,
Mm,
you are just as lost as they are. So I think it's first and foremost, you need to find yourself. You need to align yourself with your highest purpose, and you need to be coherent with what you think, what you say, and what you do. And only when you do that, then you can say that you're a leader of yourself. You are leading your own life.
yeah. Yeah, it's incredible working in this field now for years. Yeah, coming up on a decade. Working in this field, I realized maybe halfway through the power of really that it's not about leading others, that it's more about communication with yourself, feeling that freedom, that peace, and then operating in a way that they can see it, that others see it, that they follow your example more than they do your command, if you will. Um, so it's people are shocked when they come to me as clients, and the bulk of the work that we do is like inner reflection, inner awareness, inner understanding, inner dialogue. Some have outright said to me, "Can you just tell me what to say to my people so they follow me?" I'm like, "No, I mean, that's not the way I operate." I don't even operate with the internal the way you do, Monica, but I just have such a deeper appreciation where you have to know where you stand now, where you want to stand, what you want, and then you can build off of that foundation of authenticity and understanding of yourself. So I can appreciate that very much. Monica, and at this time, we can jump into the book. If you'd like to introduce the book with title and just kind of give us some insight as to how it came about.
Sure. Let me just show it to you. I have it here. It's the 7 levels of wisdom. It was a fun story because I have, as you said, I have written 9 books. Well, I have published 9 books so far. I have written a few more, but this is my first book written in English, and the other previous 8 were written in Spanish, and they were published in Spain and Latin America. And I was actually traveling through Mongolia. I was in the Gobi Desert, and I had this inspiration. I think when that happens is you get in touch with the collective consciousness, or or your higher self, whatever you want to call it, and you get like some sort of really high inspiration. And at that time, the inspiration was, you need to write this book in English because it will reach out more people. And I got like the guidelines to do it. It was like hard work, really hard work, because it's already, I mean, for anyone that has written a book, you know how much effort it takes. But when you do it in a language that is not your mother tongue, it's even double the effort. But anyway, I followed that inspiration, and I did it. And that was only the very beginning. I thought that, well, okay, my part is done. That's it. But of course, I didn't have any contacts or any networks in the US. And this book was primarily for the US. So I tried to reach out to publishers and agents in my field, and it did not work out. So I thought, well, where's why? This is not it was not my goal to start with, because sometimes you have goals and you push the goals from your ego, but it was not my goal at all. It just came to me, and I did it out of, I would say, service to humanity. So I was like, when you do things from that perspective, then things like doors open for you, because it's not something that you're not trying to push them open. Anyway, I have to cut a long story short. It took me 5 years of just putting the book in the drawer, so to speak. But I never gave up. Something told me it's not the right timing, but it doesn't mean it's not going to be at some point. So one day, 5 years later, after finishing the book, not starting it, 5 years after finishing the book, I got the same inspiration that will just told me, okay, maybe it's time to reactivate the book. And it was like, maybe, how, where? I mean, I think I touch every single publisher in the US, and I'm not going to do the same all over again. But funnily enough, I was guided towards a publisher that I didn't know. So I wrote to them. Of course, I still have what I had. I mean, lack of contacts or a really powerful platform to promote it from, the typical things that most publishers ask authors to have.
Mm-hmm.
I was still at the same point. But anyway, I sent them the manuscript, and 2 weeks later, they sent me a contract. So again, I think I am an example of, if you don't give up, if you are constant in your work, if you have faith, and you do things from your heart, at some point, the right timing will appear, and then things will flow. And that's exactly how it all happened.
Yeah, there's so much to that. Advice, tips, and everything else we give, sometimes it sounds cliche, but there really is a lot to that, where if you find the enjoyment in the work, you'll find more peace in that process and the journey than if you want that goal, that specific goal, instead of really just knowing that you're doing what you're meant for, you're doing what you enjoy, you want people to see it. So there's something to be said about being driven from the inside, having that internal drive, because you can control that. You can control you know what your passion is, your purpose, your fire, and you can control the amount of work you can put in. Everything outside you can't really control.
Exactly. But I think one needs to learn humility,
Mm,
because we think we know, and that's obviously just the ego, the mind that thinks that knows it all. And it's like, okay, I know what I want, I know what I want to get, I know what the achievement needs to be, and I know when and how. And of course, we don't know any of those,
yeah.
But we have to have that sort of humility to accept that the only thing that is under your control, I would say, is the work that you need to do. Is the process, as you mentioned. Is
Mhm.
you need to follow your bliss, as Joseph Campbell used to say. And this is your purpose, this is your alignment, this is what gives you joy. And you need to enjoy every single step of the process, because if you don't do it, and you are just expecting a certain outcome and you are so attached to it, then it's not going to be worth it, because things are going to be whatever they are meant to be, and you never know in advance how things are going to develop, how things are going to unfold. It's always a surprise. So if you don't enjoy it, then you're going to resent the whole process, because you're not getting where you want when you want.
Yeah.
So, in a way, you have to go into action, but only when it's necessary. And you need to know the difference when to act and when not to act. And not acting on something doesn't mean you're not making progress. It means that you are into being, you are more listening to the signs, and you develop the wisdom to be able to know when to act and when to just wait and do something else and enjoy whatever you are doing at that time, or not doing anything.
Mm. Yeah, like there's internal markers and there's external markers. The external markers are, somebody giving you a contract, somebody patting you on the back, somebody, paying for your services. And then there's the internal markers that happen before that, the satisfaction, the fulfillment, the joy that you get from what you're doing, from the work you're doing, up until that point that you do get a contract or whatever it might be. So it's amazing how there are external markers and internal markers. So, Monica, what does the book look like? What is the path you take the reader on? What are the phases? What are the parts of the book for which you lay out the foundation for the reader?
I would say that the most important message here is that we all go through different stages of consciousness, or different stages of wisdom. And we don't go through, very few people go through all of them in one lifetime. I mean, you usually need many lifetimes to get to graduation, which
To
will
get it
be
right, yeah.
exactly enlightenment, will be the final one. But we all do go through different stages. And this is something that goes against common sense or common knowledge, because people think that once you become an adult, that's it. You have
Mhm.
your map of life. You know yourself, you have your beliefs, and you're going to go the same way and apply the same paradigm to everything you do until you die. And it does not work that way, or it doesn't have to be that way. If you're
So
able to develop yourself, then your worldview will change, your self-perception will change, your moral values will change, your actions will change, and your relationship with others as well. So everything changes, because the filter through which you look at the world and you look at yourself changes as you develop yourself.
so what are the 7 levels of wisdom that the title refers to?
Yes, those levels I will just give the names
Sure.
to give an idea. The first one will be conformist. The second one is an expert. The third one is an achiever. The fourth one is an independent. The fifth one is a strategist. The sixth one is an alchemist. And the final one is the unitive. So I will give an ideas for people to understand it in a simple way. I give like 3 tiers of development. And within those 3 tiers, we can find the 7 levels of wisdom. So the first one will be the pre-conventional tier. And this is when the individual has not gone in through society yet. is just knowing himself or herself better without the constraints of society.
Mhm.
I don't go into that one because it's, I think is, I will say, a little bit. I don't want to sound condescending, but primitive mindset sort of thing.
Yeah.
Then the three next ones, or the three first ones that I consider in the book, belong to the tier of conventional. And in the conventional tier, what we find is we only have one paradigm, and this is the paradigm of the rational mind. And people identify themselves with their body and their ideas. And we function within the constraints and the rules of society. And this is where most people are. Probably 70% or more of our society belongs to this tier. And the maximum aspiration when we are at this tier is to become an achiever. And this is what is promoted by society and is rewarded by society. And this is like the maximum aspiration for everyone. Okay, I want to be an achiever. I want to have material success. What they don't realize is that there's still 4 more levels to go through if you want to continue your own development. And those 4 final levels are in the post-conventional tier. So how do you get from the conventional tier to the post-conventional tier? Well, you start questioning. You realize that maybe society does not have all the answers. Maybe you don't have to comply with what experts say. Maybe you don't have to follow the rules. Maybe you don't have to follow the crowd. Maybe you are allowed to think for yourself. And maybe the rational mind is only one way to understand the world, but there are other ways to understand the world that are non-rational, and they are as valid as the other. Maybe there's not just one paradigm, maybe there are different paradigms.
Hmm.
You can only do that if you're willing to question yourself, your beliefs, and the rules of society. There are just some rules, but it doesn't mean they are the only rules. So it takes a lot of freedom when you do that and to do that. So you have to have a lot of like an independent sort of mind to be able to do that questioning, and a lot of inner courage to be able to leave that conventionalism where everybody is located. Because some people are going to say, "What are you doing? I mean, are you going crazy? Why? Why do you be different?" You know, and most of the times you're not just not going to be supported by most people. You are going to be persecuted, you are going to be looked down on, and you're going to be belittled because, okay, you're not like everyone else, and it takes a toll on you. That's why you have to create and work on your inner strength, because you need to rely on yourself, and that's the only way to keep growing. Otherwise, you count on the external support that may be there or not there. And in a way, it's like, okay, I don't care. If it comes, it's good. And if it doesn't come, it's good too. Because I rely on my own strength, my own forces, my own inner guidance, as we were saying before.
Yeah, it's interesting. Just as an example, my life getting to a certain point where I've achieved those, markers of success of society, the house, the family, the 2 cars, the careers, this and that, but there's something missing. Like, I still haven't found what I'm looking for, and I've always been like that, very introspective, introverted, and then also introspective. So a lot of this resonates for me, and the way that I speak and share with others and just kind of put out there what's on my mind, people tend to look at me like, "Wow, you're very outspoken." It's not like I'm not or no, people will say, "You're very opinionated," for better or
Mm.
worse. They'll say, "You're very opinionated." I'm like, "No, I'm just asking questions." I don't tend to go with the convention of the usual questions. Like, I'm always looking for, okay, what else is no one asking about? Because I don't want to be locked into a script. That's the way I see that programming is a script. So it's easy to step out of the script. There's a little bit of bravery, a little bit of courage, a little bit of loneliness because no one will kind of go there with you. But a lot of what you're saying is resonating. So I appreciate that. Monica, I'm always curious when I
It's
speak.
very promising because it's like, in a way, you have a lot of room for growth. And I think that's very promising. Otherwise, life becomes so boring and
Yeah.
dull. And it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah. For all intents and purposes, I've reached the level of success that we all tend to look for when we go to college, when we follow that script. So I got those markers when I was, I don't know, mid 30s, 40. What else is there? So aside from these things, it's like, what else? And I've said this before, it kind of lends to my anxiety sometimes because it's kind of like, and it's nothing against my family, my kids, nothing against that at all.
Yeah.
But there's always like this voice saying, what else is there? What else is there? Like, what can you put out into the world? It's interesting because it's scary, but it's interesting at the same time. It makes me more curious because now that I've had that level of success, it's like a blank canvas. Like the conventional is taken care of. The rest is like, what do I want to design?
And I think that that is the inner calling to become the hero of your own story.
Hmm.
That's exactly what Joseph Campbell talked about. And I think this is something that we will do at some point. Every single human being, maybe not in this lifetime, but at some point in their soul journey, we all have to encounter that, and we all have to make that decision. I am not an animal that will just follow a crowd. I'm not part of that group. I am my own person, and I need to be the hero of my story. And the
Hmm.
hero always needs to leave behind the familiar, the
Hmm.
conventional. And you need to discover for yourself what your calling is. And you need to go through the test, you need to go through the trials, and then you go and discover something that is very powerful and unique, like all the heroes. And then at some point, when you learn that, you have to decide, okay, now that I have discovered something very unique, very precious, then I can decide if I go back to society and I try to teach that or to share that with others.
Yeah.
And this is it's like the full circle. You leave society and you come back a better person, and you want to help others and you want to give back to society, but from a different place.
Yeah, it's very interesting working with people. It's one thing to live with people, another thing to work with people, but it's interesting to work with people with that mentality in mind, where you're not jumping to something so different, but you're kind of leading them there through the questions that you're asking. So it's an interesting process. I'm, only finding it out, working my way through it, but it's interesting because, like I said, the journey is rewarding. That self
Yes.
discovery is rewarding. I'm not waiting for a reward in the end from this. I'm living the reward every day just through that curiosity and creativity.
And that reward always comes when you feel aligned with your highest purpose. You may not know where this is going to take you because we are not supposed to know. We come here to this earth to pass tests, and it's not right to know the answers because otherwise they are not tests.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
so that's the way it goes. You have to accept that you are not never going to have the security of the rewards are. You don't know where this is going to take you. You don't know because it's supposed to be that way.
And I've learned that lesson in the last couple of years through the course of this podcast. Obviously, when I mean learn, doesn't mean I've learned it all, but I've learned that lesson and seen the power of the journey over the power of the goal over the reward. Like I've lived it. That living these episodes, talking to you all is rewarding. Where the series goes, great. I want it to be successful, this and that. But if I don't find the fulfillment in these moments, the wisdom in these moments, then shooting for it to be number one in whatever category is not going to get me anything if I can't sustain that fulfillment or that enjoyment that I have for myself for it. Monica, I'm
And
curious, and
I'm sorry, John. I'm just going to say something I think is pertinent here.
sure,
We should always remember something that we don't see from the ego's point of view. We don't see from this perspective when we are in this body, but when we leave the body, when we die, when we passed away, we just leave the body behind, but our consciousness continues. And in my experience, because I have worked in different places as a volunteer with people dying, I have worked with children with cancer in a hospital, and I have worked as a regression therapist as well, and I have my own memories. So all I want to say is that when there's a point, and people that have gone through near death experiences, most people share this as well. There's
Mhm.
a point where you do a review of your whole life. And when you are at that point and reviewed your whole life, it's not about your title, your achievements, or the possessions or the fame. It doesn't really matter. The only thing that matters is what are the consequences of what you did during your lifetime. And so many times, because we cannot see how we affected others,
Yeah.
so it doesn't really matter if society is not giving us rewards or
Mm.
awards for it, or even if we are appreciated or we feel completely appreciated because of it. That's not what matters. What matters is how did you make others feel, and what you put it out there. What was your motivation?
Mm.
So the causes, the only thing you can do is put the causes out there, and then it will create consequences. And it can be wholesome consequences, or it can be detrimental consequences. And you will go through that, not from your point of view when you do the review, your life review. You will feel what others felt because of your actions. And that is very, very powerful. Because even if you don't know what you are doing now, or how you are affecting or not affecting others, you are certainly creating a ripple effect, even if you are not aware of it right now, because you are not
Yeah.
supposed to be
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah, that's a huge lesson I've noticed is even if somebody, for instance, LinkedIn, for instance, somebody commenting when I see them by chance somewhere, bump into them and they mention the work that I'm doing on LinkedIn, what I'm sharing there. But meanwhile, they've never engaged, they've never done anything. So many of us may say, okay, this person's not engaging or nobody's engaging or not as many people are engaging. Maybe I'm not having impact on anybody, but somebody's always impacted, like you said, by that ripple effect of your work. So it's interesting to see it play out in not real time because I hear about it later, but finally getting to hear somebody say that. But our perception of where we should see it, when we should see it, that's the reward, the engagement on LinkedIn. Meanwhile, somebody is really taking our advice to heart and changing their lives because of it. So I appreciate that.
We have to keep
Um,
that in mind, because our society doesn't work that way. Our society wants just immediate results, and they want to get
yeah,
you want to become recognized, and it doesn't, no matter what. And so many times you see people, and I have seen so many people that get to be very famous or very wealthy, but they get corrupted to get there. So if
yeah,
you do that, yes, you get the results, you get the rewards, but you know what, you really wasted your life.
yeah. Monica, getting close to wrapping up, I'm curious, what lessons did you take away from the process of writing this book? And I mean, you've mentioned some high points saying, listen, I kept working at it. I didn't give up because I knew this was good work. But maybe aside from that lesson, were there any other lessons that you took away from putting this book out there, the process of it?
I think probably what I did is I learned, or it pushed me to learn, let's put it that way, to surrender to a higher power. Because we all have goals, we all want to do things in life, we all think that we know more than life itself. So it took me a lot of inner work, continuing my inner work, and become or be in a process of surrendering. First was detaching from the results, and the second
Mm,
part was surrendering to a higher power. And to a point where I said, okay, I don't have any more personal goals in my life. I am willing to take whatever I need to do to be able to be of benefit to humanity. And if it's not meant to be, I'm willing to take it. Why? Because I am already at peace with myself, and I am already at peace with the world, and I am already at peace with the past. I am already at peace with everyone else in my life. So even if it doesn't come, it doesn't really matter because I am already in the middle of that inner peace. So
Yeah.
everything else will be a given, but I don't need it. I don't depend on anything.
Yeah, I'm not quite there because I'm only learning these things, but it is amazing. I'll say the freedom that you get when you are at certain peace points of peace in your life, depending on career, family. When you reach a point of peace, it's amazing what you can do. It's amazing the freedom that it gives you. You're not constrained because you weren't constrained by society's expectations. I did this for myself, for my satisfaction, for my fulfillment. So that peace, that reward comes from me, from my experience. There's nothing outside that can take this away from me. So it's amazing when you feel like that certain peace start taking form over each part of your life. You experience it in different areas. The freedom that it gives you, because there's like
Absolutely.
pressure to do it for the outside. When you have that pressure, you're not using your right energy, and it just taps into all sorts of chaos, stress, um, discouragement. So there's something to be said about feeling that peace and the freedom that it gives you.
And I think it's something that everybody should work at, because now that we see that the real pandemic is the pandemic of dissatisfaction and anxiety and depression. I saw the latest figures, and 23% of Americans are saying that just in the last 3 years they have been suffering from issues of mental health, only the last 3 years. So it's like when you see that people are suffering so much because of that, you see that the real goal for everyone, the real objective in life is having inner peace. So once you have inner peace, then everything will fall into place, because the
Mhm.
rest is not that important. And then you will quit doing some things and you will just have different priorities, because people are just running after things that are not going to bring them any peace. They're
Yeah.
just frantically going after rewards, and as we said, money, fame, wealth, possessions, relationships, sex, pleasure, and they're not getting anywhere.
Yeah. And it's a perpetual cycle because, again, the more peace, fulfillment you feel inside, the more free you are to work outside, the more relaxed you are, and that energy that it gives off. I feel like things start falling in your favor, and you get more peace. So you do more the right kind of work, and more things come your way. Not things, but sensations of putting good work out there, good connections, good relationships. It's kind of reinforcing. It reinforces
Yeah.
itself. So I think that's amazing too.
And
Um,
also because too many people complain about, okay, there's no peace in the world. Yes, what are you doing for it? Are you at
mm,
peace? If you are at war inside of you, inside your mind, there's a constant battle, and you're always judging and criticizing and opposing others, and you're not cultivating inner, like, kindness, benevolence, goodwill, and then you are asking other people to do it for you outside. I mean, come on. So it's like, what are you putting out there? Because it's
yeah,
a reflection of what is inside of you. So the inner work is the only thing that matters, because then you will emanate whatever you are. And that cannot be, it's not fake. You cannot pretend. Some people try, but then it's like,
yeah.
look at yourself. How are you contributing to the global situation? Are you putting more suffering out there? Are you putting more criticism? Are you putting battles? Are you fighting people? Are you considering everyone is your enemy? Or are you working on goodwill, benevolence, uh, kindness, loving behaviors, and so on? It's our responsibility. It's not everybody's responsibility but us.
No, perfectly and beautifully said. Monica, wrapping up, is there anything that you want to share about what you're up to these days? Anything that I didn't ask? Anything you have coming up that you want to share with this audience? Please do. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Well, one of the things I'm doing is I have been doing that for a while is meditation and teaching retreats for people to help them go to a higher level of consciousness. And I'm very, very involved in that because I feel we are going through a shift on this earth. And I think more and more people are starting to wake up, and for many people the Eastern way doesn't work because it's not in our culture, and then they don't know how to do it in their lives in within this society. So I feel this is part of my mission here is to help people in this society, in the Western society, with the Western mindset, guide them, give them a hand on how to keep progressing on those levels of wisdom, because those levels of wisdom always come with inner peace and compassion. And helping them do that, that's my commitment to the world. So I have been doing that for a while and in Spain, and I hope to start doing it in English and probably in the US and Costa Rica in the future.
Any way I can help, please let me know.
Thank you.
And
That's
again,
very kind.
Monica's book is The 7 Levels of Wisdom, A Path to Fulfillment. Monica, thank you so much for your time and for sitting down with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, John. It has been a real, real pleasure.
And if there's anything that I might have missed, something I should have asked that I didn't, please let me know. I'll reach out to Monica, see if I can get some additional insight, guidance, wisdom that she could share. In the meantime, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.